Welcome back to The Backmarkers, the F1 podcast for new fans, by new fans. My name is Mike Hurley, and I am joined by my teammate, Austin Evans. Hi, Austin.
Hello, my friend.
It's did they call them co-drivers? No, they didn't call them that.
No.
I really
it's
struggled.
Totally different kind of racing. We're teammates.
Yes,
we're
teammates.
And I'm not going to give you the point by, and you got to sit behind me. I don't care if I'm going to get in trouble in the debrief. I'm leading the podcast, and I will have no other words about it. My elbows are fully extended. What a race, Mike!
Can I just say it? Race of the year so far. And if anything can touch this, I'm in for it. If anything can get close to this race, my God, nearly halfway through the season. I think, was it next race is halfway through? It's 22 this time?
I think, yeah.
So we're nearly halfway done. Yeah, because we're getting ready for the break soon too. Wow. Austin, speed out ahead of me. Do the quick recap of the race.
All right. My DRS is wide open for the recap. So, P1, we've got our buddy Carlos Sainz bringing in his very first win ever, which I think is... I didn't actually realize that before this race. I assumed he just won something, but no, he has never won a race before. And Checo Perez, P2, which he had a very eventful day. Although, honestly, I'm just going to say everyone had an eventful day. I don't think anyone had a boring race whatsoever. We've got our buddy Lewis, Hamilton, P3. And then once you step off the podium, you've got Leclerc at P4, Alonso bringing a really solid P5, Norris P6, Verstappen P7, and our buddy Mick Schumacher, his very first points in F1, finally coming in P8. Then you've got Seb Vettel in P9, and Magnussen for Haas bringing in double points, so they've each got P8 and P10 coming in at, P10 respectively. That was incredible.
And then was it 6 DNFs? Today?
Yes, yeah. So, should we do the reverse? Should we actually just go over the people who did not finish the race? Okay, so people who did not finish the race, Esteban Ocon, I believe he had a fuel pump issue toward the end, although he was involved in that first lap collision. We've got Pierre Gasly, who got the black and orange flag, so they told him to come in and fix something. I wasn't exactly sure what happened, but he did not finish the race. He was also involved in that. Valtteri Bottas, I do not know. I think he retired on lap 20. I have no idea what happened to him because I don't think he was damaged in that. And then that
Gearbox
lap collision
says motorsport.com. I was too excited today watching all the podium stuff, so did not make our own graphics. I would like to thank motorsport.com if you're watching the video version, because I'm stealing all of their information today.
Shout out to Motorsport. And then last three, George Russell, Zhou Guanyu, and Alex Albon all were wiped out in that turn one collision. And I do think it's worth a mention that as of right now, and we'll probably talk about that crash in a little bit, but as of right now, Alex Albon, I believe, is still in the hospital for precautionary checks. So hopefully he's all good. He went nose first into the concrete barrier, I think, on the side of the pit wall, I believe. I have to watch the replay. Hopefully
I actually think the worst part for him wasn't so much that. It was then he got ping-ponged around. I think somebody hit him on the right-hand side, someone hit him on the left-hand side. I don't know enough about this stuff, but I'm actually not surprised he's the one that is in a little bit of a worse way.
Yeah.
Purely because just the way in which he was hit was just he was shaking around. I'm sure that they're checking him out for concussions and stuff like that,
Yeah, it was a gnarly impact, as was that whole first thing. Yeah, so Andreas in the chat is mentioning that he was back on the track before the end of the race. So I'm actually not entirely sure about what happened because, he's tweeted he's fine, but it seemed like he went sort of head into that wall. We'll talk about the crash, but I think there's this is going to be a packed episode. So everyone, strap in, tighten your belts. I'm really running out of F1 puns, which is unfortunate because we're 3 minutes into the episode. But I think we need to talk a little about some of the context before this weekend started, because obviously we had a week off last week, the little bit of a break, and it was filled with, shall we say, some controversy, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to start it. So I think it all got kicked off by Nelson Piquet. So he did an interview, and mind you, Nelson Piquet was a champion in the 87. I'm totally guessing on that. But he was quoted in an interview using some very racist language to refer to Lewis Hamilton. Mind you, this is an interview that was originally recorded in, I believe, November of last year, toward the end of the season. and obviously was not cool. And then pretty quickly, I think after a few days or something, another interview from him where he pretty much did the exact same thing was surfaced from a little bit earlier. So clearly totally unacceptable, clearly completely ridiculous. And I believe, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but it sounds like they're probably just going to ban him from the paddock.
I think F1 said that they were banning him. Like he got a ban.
Yeah.
But I think like Lewis was kind of just saying, it's like, no, it was Max that was saying that bans don't help, right? Yeah, okay, Max. But Lewis was kind of just saying like these people just, and I loved what he said. I don't know if you caught one of his interviews in the press conference where it's like, we just need to stop giving these old voices the opportunity to talk because the sport's moving on and we need to hear from younger people, not older people. And it's like, that is not a universally true thing, but I get what he's getting at. I think my read from what Lewis was saying there was he was trying to not like necessarily offend any type of specific person. But I think when he said old people, I think I could quite easily read it as people with old mindsets.
Yeah, not like, oh, all old champions after 10 years are banned from the paddock. No, I think certain people who might have some older sensibilities might not be quite as welcome. In fact, actually, kind of speaking about that, Bernie Ecclestone, the longtime head honcho of Formula One, he was interviewed, and you might have a little bit more context on this than me. He was interviewed in it was like a live interview on like, I don't know if it was Sky or what, but people were asking for his opinion on it, and he was like, oh, it's no big deal, Lewis should brush it off. And also weirdly was talking about why he would take a bullet for Putin. It's very bizarre. Like I just saw
the headline. I was like, I do not care about what Bernie Ecclestone has to say about anything. So I just saw it and was like, yeah, of course Bernie Ecclestone's an idiot. Yeah, and of course, like, look, a lot of this too, it lends into like there is a connection, right? That Nelson Piquet is the father of Max Verstappen's girlfriend.
That is, I believe,
which led
correct.
to one of the weirdest sentences I've ever heard anybody say, which was, did Max say, I have spent more time with him than the average person. So therefore, like, and then like blah, 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 he's not racist. But like that phrase is so strange. I have spent more time with him than the average person, though, so therefore I know he's not racist. And it's like, but the problem is, it was very strange. This is like, look, Nelson Piquet was very casually racist, which can be, in some instances, some of the worst stuff, because it's like, you're just normalizing it. And so I'm pleased that so many of the teams, I don't think Red Bull being one of them, spoke out against this. Red Bull have had their own issues this week. Was it the guy, is his name, what's that guy's name? Yuri Vips, that's it. I was thinking, is his name Yips? No, that's not, it's Vips.
I think it's Vips.
I think you're right. I think because that makes more sense. Like he was saying some stuff on a stream and now he's been kicked out of the Red Bull team, but still has his F2 seat, I think. With his F2 team.
Yeah, so it's the thing. Like we're talking about, these older school, older racers and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, Yuri Vips was not only a Red Bull junior, which to be fair, there are quite a few Red Bull juniors, but he was also the Red Bull reserve driver. Yeah. So that's like, I mean, in a lot of cases, kind of like the next step up would be to join AlphaTauri or Red Bull. I mean, like he was not just like some random Red Bull sort of junior. Like he was very close up there. And I mean, just stupid, right? Just completely stupid. Which I mean, there's definitely a small part of me which is like, teams should not let their drivers on as many live streams as they are. It's just too, like, obviously idiots like this are gonna say stupid stuff and get canceled, and like that's fair. But like,
I'll agree with what you're saying, but there is that thing of like, but it does help weed these people out, which is helpful,
I guess. Yeah.
But you have got to wonder though, as a team, why do you let these people speak?
Yeah,
on their own,
man. I just think about these potential future multimillionaires who are going to have these illustrious careers. Why are you letting them live stream playing Call of Duty? I mean, look, I hopefully will never accidentally say something racist, but I'll tell you what, if I'm playing Call of Duty, there's a good chance I'm going to say something stupid that I shouldn't. Maybe not quite to that degree.
Stupid
but it's like,
is different though, right? Like you can say totally something stupid, and we all say things that are stupid. I say things that I don't know are insensitive, but it's the way that you deal with it too, right? Like I've said stuff in the past where it's like, I'm sure that this term is fine. And then it turns out, oh, now it's an ableist term and I wasn't aware. But the way that you handle that is with humility, and you speak openly to your community and say like, I was wrong. But like the problem is these people, like the PK family, are just like, this is no problem, right?
He's
like,
old. Leave him alone.
Oh no, but they're like,
no.
it's all. We've always said these kinds of words. I just think it's like, oh, this is, you know, and I've been talking with some people, like I understand that like this is a thing that older people would say in Brazil, but everybody knows it's wrong now. And even if you are an older person, you know it's wrong, but you just try and get away with it by saying, oh, I've always said this. But anyway,
that's not the way the world works.
Turns out there are bad people, and luckily we have people like Lewis Hamilton to speak truth about it.
And he did a terrific
'Cause
job,
he's
I
great
think, of
at this
handling
stuff.
this. Yeah, that's the thing. I think over especially the last year or two, like I've always respected Lewis a lot, but I think the way that he handles these situations, because you can imagine, I mean, almost all of these situations are such a lose-lose for him. You know, like he doesn't want to like push too far, but also he can't be silent. Like it's
And he
such
also
a,
doesn't
tough
want his
position.
entire like everything he does to just be about racial issues all the time. But at the
course.
same time, the guy, because he's so great and stuff like this, he says he is now pushing the entire sport forward, setting up charities. He has the Hamilton Commission, doing reports. Like, I love him. What can I say? You all know I love him.
Well, yeah, I mean, no surprise, but yeah, yet again another classy example of Sir Lewis Hamilton being the knight of the Formula One round table. I'm gonna go with that one. Actually, I feel good with that one.
That was pretty good. One last thing before we get to the race: the game F122 is out. I do wish they
I've not
would
played it yet.
I wish they would get it out in March. They
Well,
always get it out in July. I wish they would have it out in March.
I think it's probably just they need time to like.
No, I know.
put the
I
new
get
cars in
it.
the
Like, I
game,
get
yeah.
it. But, like, one thing that's missing from the game this year, which I was really bummed about, they don't have that story mode. The breaking point
they
story mode.
don't?
No, they said they're going to have that
Oh.
every 2 years for the time being.
Okay.
Because they do, like many of these annual games, they're actually on a 2-year development cycle. And
Right,
they said
right.
that at least they're going to have it next year and then maybe hopefully every year. But they said with the work of the new tracks and the new cars and the new regulation and the new people in the teams, it was too much work for them to put it in. I've been playing it on my Steam Deck.
Ooh.
And I am loving it. I'm living out my fantasies right now. I've just won the world championship as George Russell.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I will say that I'm going to assume that the cars aren't accurately balanced because I have been absolutely destroying it in a Mercedes. And I'm playing on
You've been
I'm
bouncing
not
all
playing
the
on
way?
easy, no bouncing. I was wondering if that was going to happen. No bouncing. I've been playing it not on easy. I've been playing it on I don't know, standard, and I've increased the driver AI. So I get a bit more of a battle out of it, but still have some of the I still want some of I'm not an F1 driver. I want some of the assists, but I've been killing it. So once I've completed this one, I think I'm going to do a career mode then, where you create your own driver, create your own team, that kind of stuff. But some of the things I've added are weird, like, hey, you can drive the safety car if you want. It's like,
Cool. Can I drive the safety car and get everyone really mad at me because I'm driving too slow?
no,
'Cause
you
that's
can
the only
only
cool part
drive
of
the safety car on speed laps. And they've added 5 supercars to the game, and they're really excited about this.
I've got Gran Turismo, but thanks. I appreciate it, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks fantastic, plays fantastic. One of the things I've been really enjoying on the Steam Deck, which is the thing I didn't know you could do. I guess you could do it on PlayStation, but I didn't know. You know, when you press the button to speak to the engineer, you can actually speak aloud what you want.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if this was in
that's
other
cool.
games. I mean, and look, it's not perfect, but if you say the right thing in clear enough ways, so I can press the button and be race information or whatever it is, and they will just give me all of the info about the race, or I can say box, and it's that's cool. I like that. It's a good feature. But anyway, look,
Nice.
we just said this is maybe the best race of the year, and we're not even talking about it.
Man, we've got a lot to dig into. Let's talk about qualifying, though.
Okay.
A very rainy qualifying. Obviously, I was not there at the race, but it sounded like right before qualifying started, a downpour came in, and sort of like back in Canada, it was a little unexpected. The teams were kind of caught off guard, and so it was spicy. I will say it was as eventful and as rainy and as treacherous as it was out there.
Yep.
People were actually, generally speaking, pretty good. There were a couple good loops. I think there's one great video someone shot trackside of Leclerc doing a full 360 and kept going. I know Max kind of
Max did
looped
it
it.
too.
It was slippery.
Uproar from the crowd when Max was spinning.
But terrific qualifying,
Yeah.
and out of absolutely nowhere, our buddy Carlos Sainz takes pole, mostly because Leclerc, I think he like went off on his final lap, and then Max got caught by a yellow flag, which, to be fair, Max was very much looking like he was on point to get pole, and but he had to back off a little bit, and so Carlos
of it
just
though, right?
sneaks right in. Yeah, hey, right time, right place. You got to put the lap in. It doesn't matter. You do 20 fastest laps. If you don't get it in at the last second, it doesn't matter. So
This
yeah,
is the like I
terrific
was
qualifying.
thinking it at the time. Like these kinds of conditions do not suit or did not suit Max Verstappen's drive style. He is very aggressive, right? Which is what makes him a champion. But that aggression, I don't know how well that pairs with drenched track.
I mean, yeah, he was definitely aggressive, as was Leclerc, to be fair. I think Verstappen and Leclerc both are, they have confidence that barely fits in their cars sometimes. But it did seem like Max was very likely on par for pole. Like, I mean, he was super aggressive, but he was, generally speaking, keeping it on the gray bit in the middle. But he was certainly caught out by that yellow flag when Leclerc went around, which did ruin his last lap. So very, very, very likely Leclerc would have probably been up there as well with Max. But obviously, hey, would have, could have, should have. Carlos got not only the pole, but of course got the victory. Although it was far from a straightforward race today.
Or easy.
Holy, yeah, man. I feel like we're gonna be here. This is gonna be a long episode. There's
possible.
so much to talk about.
Let's just
right?
start with the way the race started. Just
Boom, a
I mean-
NASCAR race.
this is the thing I've been going backwards and forwards on. Just hold me here. Like I'm trying to work out in my mind if visually Zhou Guanyu's crash is worse than Romain Grosjean.
No.
So here's what I'm trying to
No.
say, right? Like
Okay.
the fire is what tips out Grosjean, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Hitting the barrier and sliding down beneath the barrier and the wheel and being there for a very long time. This close. I think Grosjean, the fire, right? It's the fire that obviously would tip Grosjean ahead. But that was easily one of the scariest things I've seen in the last few years in the sport, right? Because it was the whole mess of things. Like one, upside down, sliding across the track is all we saw. And my wife Adina pointed out to me, like, clearly they listened to the drivers about not showing
Yes.
anything. And then also, I feel like they obviously showed the replays, but they feel like they limited it. It wasn't too much. I wanted to see what happened when I knew that he was okay, right? Because I couldn't understand what had happened. It was an absolutely wild crash. Like basically what it seems like happened. It was a combination of George had a bad start. A few people had a bad start, especially those on the hard. So there was a lot of bunching up in the field as we were coming off the line. And it seems like Zhou Guanyu was coming down the outside, and George was coming up alongside him, but there was a gap in the middle, which Gasly wanted to go for. George
And the
was,
TP had just shot that gap too, so it wasn't like it was just out of nowhere. Like they were definitely moving.
and so Gasly's going for it. George is trying to close the gap. And/or has seen him, and/or hasn't seen him. Kind of doesn't really matter, I feel like. But in doing that, Gasly's front tire hits George's back tire, sends George forward and more towards Zhou Guanyu. Zhou Guanyu's tire hits George and it launches him. I think Jenson Button said this. It was everything went wrong until Zhou Guanyu got out of the car. Like, every single thing that could have gone wrong went wrong. Because for a car to be launched is unbelievable. For it to go upside down, to then jump the tires, which are supposed to stop the car, and then hit that barrier. It's like, there are parts of that track where this would have been much worse, right? Like, because there isn't always that gate. Sometimes there's gaps. There's different, but it was absolutely horrifying. And then at the same time, people were reacting. Albon slows down. Vettel, I think it was, hit him.
Yep. I believe so,
Albon
yeah.
spins right, hits the concrete wall head on, and then it's just a combination of, I'm assuming, probably Esteban and Yuki, I think, just basically ping-ponging.
It was an absolute melee. I will say, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me with this, if there was blame to be apportioned for this, I think it's a little bit on George, because you can see in the onboard, George is on the inside, right? Like,
Yeah.
and to be fair, I think Zhou was completely doing his own thing, right? Like, he was there, he was all the way to the edge of the track. There's nothing he can do here. Gasly comes up, and I don't think George sees him, and George goes to close the door. You see his head turns, looks toward the mirror, didn't see him, starts coming in. And from Gasly's point of view, he's going up, which, to be fair, Gasly was making a very bold move, but he was following Latifi right through. It wasn't like he was doing something outrageous or whatever. He commits. He's already in between. George comes in, pincers him, and at that point, everything is set off. So while I feel for George, and also I feel for George because he got out of his car, he probably could have continued the race, but he got out of his car to go check on Zhou, which was absolutely the human right thing to do in a scenario like that. But I think he got a little too punchy, or just didn't see Pierre and just set it off. So look,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's tough. It's tough because, like,
to me, this feels like, while as horrible as it was, this is just race. Like, it just felt like it was just racing. You know, this is
I
just
agree with that.
one of those bad racing incidents. Everyone was at that point trying to, the same as like what happened to Albon, right? It's just like, it was just reactions happening poorly. Like, because everyone was bunched up at that moment. It was a very odd start. It was a great start for some, right? Lewis and Max had great starts, but then when they restarted the race, they went back to grid order because they hadn't passed it's called the second safety car 2 line, whatever that means. There's just an area on the track that if you don't go past that, they just reset to the beginning because there hasn't been nearly enough of the cars have passed the first corner, basically.
Yeah, it was. So there's like, I feel like there's still more layers to this, right? Because not only did that happen, but at the exact same time, there were protesters who got on the track. So I saw a photo on Twitter.
Yep.
Apparently they were dressed as marshals and they hopped the fence or something. But that actually, I think, is why the red flag flew almost immediately. Because normally when an incident like this happens, I would assume that the FIA lets everyone kind of hit that safety car line. You know, everyone's past the incident or whatever. Let everyone go the 5 seconds farther or whatever, since obviously there's no danger up the track.
It could have been that for sure, but like, that was a really bad accident. Like, and
No, it absolutely was. But the red flag came out almost instantly. I think the red flag was actually for those protesters.
they were ready for this, by the way. So this protest had been rumored for days. It was an environmental protest.
Was it?
The police in I think is it Northumbrian police, which is where the area is, were pleading for these protesters to not do this and that they would help them arrange a peaceful protest. What I will say about this, it's environmental protest. Obviously, I believe in what these people were trying to speak about. I do not think that this was a good idea. This is dangerous to so many people and could have been, like, I think Martin Brundle said it, and I think he said it right. As terrible as that first accident was, a blessing in disguise, because if that would have continued, I can't even imagine the horrors that could have occurred at that point. And I think people should, or Northamptonshire being corrected by our wonderful live chat audience. It's like, these people should be able to protest at Formula One. I understand why you'd protest this if you're an environmental, advocate, activist. Like, I get it. Not like that, though.
There is not a cause on earth I can imagine is worth people running onto an active racetrack that is being run with Formula One cars. Like, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, sure, I get it. You're going to try to get attention. And to be fair, we're talking about them like everyone else is talking about them, right? So they accomplished their goal. But, I mean, talk about just reckless disregard for not only your lives, but the drivers, the actual real
marshals.
stewards. Like, I don't have anything good to say about that.
But they were ready for it, so you might be right.
Yeah.
That was why it was activated so quickly. They were ready for it. You know, it's like basically with where they got on the track, the cars never would have gotten around to them at speed. happening at the time that it happened.
Sure.
I don't think that, honestly, I don't think that these activists were taking that into consideration.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, pretty rough.
Wild. But yeah, just a ridiculous start to the race. It was, I think, a 45, 50-minute red flag. It was quite a long red flag because they were not only dealing with that, they had to clear up all the debris. And of course, Zhou's car was literally wedged. I wish we could show photos without getting copy struck immediately, but like his car, you should look it up, was like wedged in between the tire bundle and the catch fence. And I think there's definitely something to be said. That catch fence, if he would have bounced a little bit too much or whatever, that car would have been in those stands. Like the fact that he got wedged in such a tiny spot, incredibly lucky.
Can you imagine being one of those spectators watching that car career towards you?
Hopefully you caught a piece of carbon and didn't let it smash you in the head or something. You got a
Can
souvenir
you
instead of
imagine that feeling? Do you think you'd even be able to react?
Oh, I think so. No, because remember, it happened way farther down. Like they were still on the straight when he got flipped over. So you would have seen him upside down sliding towards you for a few seconds. I don't think anyone would have been super surprised. I mean, they were like, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been to like a baseball game in person, but like usually, like, you see a foul ball coming. You got a couple seconds to go, oh, is that coming to me? Oh, it's coming to me. Oh, it's coming to me. Oh, that's coming to me. Like you got that second if you're paying attention.
And I
which
guess
the first lap.
even though the fences are there, if a car's coming toward in your direction, you're going to be like, yeah, that must have been pretty scary. So
crazy.
Zhou Guanyu and Albon both went to the medical center, and Albon went to hospital.
Yeah.
At the time of recording, it was very clear that Zhou Guanyu was okay. There has been some word that Albon was back in the paddock, maybe? This is unclear to me. This is unclear to me.
Yeah. I don't want to speculate. All I know is the official word, which was he went to the medical center on site, got his initial checks. They all have like little G meters, I think, in like their earpieces or something. I think it must have triggered that. And so it could have just been a thing, oh, hey, you had a really bad incident. Just go and get checked out. But we don't know. We think he's okay.
As of right now,
fine.
He hasn't tweeted anything. So
okay. Yeah. So hopefully he's all good. But I can imagine, they're doing, even though the race had just started, they're doing real speeds, and he went nose first. They had a great shot of his Williams sitting on top of the wrecker, and the front end wasn't like obliterated. It was like smashed. Like it looked so bizarre because he just went straight into, which, hey, shout out to the car for not obliterating itself. But yeah, hopefully he's okay. And I will say, even though I do put a little bit of blame for the incident on George, George did 100% the right thing by getting out of his car. I mean, to be fair, I'm sure the marshals were like, hey, get out of your, stay away from your, stay away, don't do this or whatever. But he ran over. And that's actually one of the downsides. We didn't really get to see what had happened because obviously they were trying to be very respectful, as the TV director, I think, did a great job of, keeping the replays to a minimum and whatnot. But George definitely went over to try to go help.
There was a replay.
Sure.
Maybe you missed it. I don't know. But so there was one of the replays. George stops. He looks right and he looks left. Then he gets out of the car. And that, I got to say, obviously, my bias is strong. So I'm going to say a lot of things over the next few minutes. He was the only one that did it.
Yeah.
And it's rare to see that, right?
Yep.
In general, it's rare to see that because it's dangerous. He got out of that car and he ran, right? Because he can see how bad that is. There's pictures I saw of George standing on top of the tire wall.
Oh, really?
He got up on top of the tire wall, and I don't know what he was doing in that moment, whether he's communicating with the marshals and then he goes back to the car because he, at this point, I'm sure he's been told there's nothing he can do. He's been sent away. They're bringing the teams or whatever.
Yeah.
And George gave a post-race interview where he said, he could see at that point, it was a red flag, people were starting to rejoin. And he couldn't restart his car at that point. He then went to talk to Mercedes engineers, came back, and his car had been put on a flatbed. And because his car was put on a flatbed, on the truck, is why he was then told that he couldn't rejoin the race. Now, I understand the rules. The problem I have here is knowing these rules now says that George should not go to check on a teammate, or not a teammate, someone, a colleague.
Sure.
Where I think you should be encouraged in that moment as someone who is there, right there, when nobody else can get there as quickly as George Russell. You could see it. George is running ahead of someone. And I just feel that like that it doesn't feel right to me when there were so many cars on 3 wheels with no nose cones that got to rejoin the race. And I understand the rules, but then at the same time, if George didn't ask for his, I don't know. My point is, there's a lot of complication around this. I think it's quite murky. I feel like the driver and or the teams in a situation like that should have a little bit more control over what's occurring to their cars. If other cars can just limp their way on 3 wheels back to the pits, why didn't George at least get the opportunity? I don't know. It's complicated. It's very complicated.
Yeah. I mean, look, I 100% think that it was the right call for George to go. I mean, obviously, it was dangerous. You always want to be incredibly careful when you are walking around on an active racetrack, even if there is a red flag or you never know what's going on. And the fact that he went over to help is great. But I do kind of think that the issue was that once he got back to his car, it wouldn't start. And at that point, if his car doesn't start, then of course it needs to be towed away. And no one's going to delay the race for that.
You're right. And I understand, as people are saying in the chat, like, George is not qualified, blah, 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 blah. But I just think that, like, what? So imagine that, I don't know. Like, the point is, like, if he could have helped a situation, then he should help the situation.
Yeah, of course.
He's a human being. Zhou Guanyu is another human being.
Yeah.
Because of some rule to the race, he shouldn't try and help him out. Like, I can't reconcile that, personally.
Well, and it definitely did wreck George's race, right? In hindsight, assuming there was no other damage, which it doesn't seem like there was, he turned off his car to get out to go help. When he came back, the car wouldn't want to restart. Assuming that the car was still running, which it seemed like it was at the time, although we would want to check replays, he could have just driven back to the pits, got fresh tires, and as you saw with a lot of the other drivers, probably done really well. So ultimately, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a sticky conversation at the Mercedes pit wall tonight. That being said, I don't think anyone can fault him for doing what was absolutely the right human thing, if it wasn't the right competitive thing, of going and trying to help a driver who was clearly in a really, really tough situation.
Because as well, like, it's
wild.
Again, people saying in the chat he could have died. There were other people on the track at that moment when George is running. So it's not like cars are zooming around at 200 mile an hour. Like, people were running towards the scene. George was one of them. I can't fault him for that. He's a human being, and I don't know what you could say. I understand, like, in certain circumstances, if cars are still coming, I get it, right? But that wasn't the case in this scenario.
I do agree. Look, there's room for discussion on it. Obviously, he was the only driver who got out. Other drivers could have hopped out, but everyone kept kind of running where it's a whole thing. I think George did the right human thing, and I think George, even though he almost certainly left some points on the table by doing it, I think he should sleep soundly tonight knowing that he did the right moral thing. At least that's my call.
Yes, I agree with you. Like, this is, George was upset. He's lost. Yes, he's now the only race that he's not only not finished, he's not finished top 5, which I think he could have still continued that today because of everything else that went down during the race. Because as well, he would have started back from his original grid position if he would have been able to restart. I will agree with you. He can know that there was no doubt in his mind that what he did was the right thing at that moment. And I know that if I was George Russell, that's what I would want to feel. I wouldn't want to feel that, like, oh, should I have actually gotten out of that car and checked if he was okay? Like, so
you can imagine if things did not have such a good turn of events and Zhou being okay, that the conversation around this would have been very different. And I think Zhou should buy George a beer or two. I think at the very least, I think he owes him one after that, because that was wild. But
I think they owe each other beers. Everybody owes each other beers. Gasly, Russell, Zhou Guanyu, there's beers all around happening over the next couple of days.
Oh, man. But yeah, so that was a lot for what was the first hour of the race, but really was the first lap, which ended up not counting, as you said, because of that safety line thing and the red flag and all this kind of stuff. Pretty much everyone got reset to where they were. Obviously, the cars who were farther back got promoted, and George and everyone who was 8th, I think, and down. But the race got restarted. And it's easy to forget that first restart, Max got a mega start. So did Lewis, right? So that restart definitely kind of disadvantaged them a little bit. But once you got actually into the race, it was man, it was a good race. Like, I don't think I was bored for 1 minute in this race. Like, it was exciting. There
It
was
was
always
constant.
stuff going
Yep.
on. People were out of position, which is
Yep.
always, I think, an exciting kind of thing. You see Lewis flying forward, and it's that first restart, man. Look, I love Carlos. I'm going to say this for the record. I love Carlos Sainz. I think he's a great driver. I think he's a little bit, maybe a half step behind, like Charles and Max and Lewis, but I think still a terrific driver. He that was I look, if Max were pulling some of the moves that Carlos were pulling in that first lap or two, I think people would have a different conversation. He was, I would say, almost recklessly defending, pushing Max all the way off the track. I mean, he was legitimately like 6 lanes wide. He got away with it, and I think nothing was like, no individual moment I think was egregious. But I was watching that, I was like, I don't know, man. That was, especially after this huge wreck, and you're immediately just swinging around.
He wanted it.
And
He wanted it so bad today, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not excusing him. I'm just saying, like, I think that was pretty evident. Carlos Sainz wanted that so bad today, and he was willing to do literally anything for it. One thing he did put super right was arguing against Ferrari. Ferrari, like, I am not in F1, right? We are very clearly backseat commentators
Drivers.
on the sport, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand Ferrari and their strategy sometimes. Like, there were points in the race where it was like, why were they not doing the switch over sooner? Like, why were they making these suggestions about, like, saying to Sainz, like, you need to be doing X speed, and so Leclerc, and then the whole time Lewis is catching up to both of them. Like, and then that end one of, like, suggesting that Sainz was supposed to try and hold Lewis back so Leclerc could have a launch, which if they would have done that, I reckon Lewis probably, if Lewis also probably Sergio would have won that race. If they would have actually stuck to that strategy, Sainz would have been a sitting duck to them, and then and then Leclerc would have been pretty much straight after.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to say about Mercedes, and especially when you look at how well they've done this race compared to what Ferrari have done. And I think Ferrari had pace today, but it's like, okay, so obviously they had a lot of questionable strategy decisions, which thankfully, like you said, Carlos pushed back on.
Yep.
But also, it's easy to forget that sort of in that second restart, both Leclerc and Sergio both got damage. In fact, very similar damage to their front wings. The difference was that Checo could not live with it, was super slow, came into the pits, swapped his nose, which obviously ended up being a terrific call in the end.
Yep.
But Leclerc spent almost the entire race missing a front wing end plate. Now, that being said, he lost that because he just kind of like Carlos in a way, took a ridiculously aggressive dive and like that first restart, there was so much nonsense. Like everyone, like the fact that there was not another major collision and they only just kind of kept bumping, like everyone needed to calm down. I think Lewis was the only one who was like being respectful and reasonable. Everyone else was just like, they're trying to like be a Machamp over here with 4 elbows out,
was
kind of
really
like trying to
weird.
cover everything.
It was super weird to see, as you say, right? Like between Verstappen and Sainz and Leclerc and Perez, that amount of aggression after such a horrific first attempt. Like, it was quite peculiar. Like, you would naturally assume, obviously these people are very daring, but you would maybe assume a little bit more meekness after seeing something like that occur. But no, it was more aggressive than the first attempt, which is the first attempt was just unlucky. It really was wild. And there was a lot of these kinds of moments throughout the race. Max picked up some damage somewhere to his underfloor, absolutely destroyed his race.
No, it was tough. So essentially, it seemed like it was actually probably from Checo's car. It seemed like, because it was about the same part of the track. But yeah, he, I think, ran over some carbon because he did have a puncture, I'm pretty sure. But also, I don't think it was just the puncture. I think it was also some damage to the floor. I will say one thing as someone who does like Max maybe a touch more than the average person. I think the fans at Silverstone were not a big fan of Max this weekend. If I'm just going to just be a little broad and general, I don't think he was the favored person.
No.
And I mean, he got massively booed during the qualifying interviews where I don't think he could hear the interviewer. And man, people were excited to see Max coming in because by most, I mean, Max was probably the fastest person this weekend, right?
As he is basically every weekend.
Exactly, yeah. He got unlucky with qualifying and certainly unlucky in the race, picking up the damage. Where, I mean, he was, to be fair, whining a lot about it, which, fair enough. But, I mean, it's undrivable. It's 100% broken, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Max,
lots of people had their
like
moments today. Leclerc, too, right? Like, Leclerc was very, very upset.
Also, just as a side note, can the Ferrari team upgrade their driver mics? I can hardly understand any of the Ferrari drivers. It's just like,
that's purposeful.
Copy, sure thing. It's like, what? What did you just say? Like, it's not even like there's just like accents. It's literally like it's like their mics are like in their mouths or something. So Ferrari, you guys make a lot of money. Can y'all just like maybe get some new mics?
I do think as well it was made better by the fact that like during these moments today, those drivers were both under an intense amount of pressure, maybe more than usual. So they were both very upset, as well as their microphones being kind of trashy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty funny.
Oh god, but yeah, man, I feel like I'm just trying to remember all the things that happened because so once Max came in, it was very much looking like a Ferrari race, but Lewis was in the hunt pretty much the whole time. Like he was never dropped too far behind. There was a lot of strategy with the Ferraris trying to figure out like who's going to pit when. There was a little bit of a gap between when I think because Carlos came in first, got the hards. They weren't firing up too much. And Lewis was like, yeah, Bono, my tires are fine. No worries. My tires are fine. Like, it was like a real, like, he was very much like, do not bring me in. I am doing fine. And he was doing fine. Although ultimately that stint didn't give him any kind of huge advantage. But he led some laps. And, man, I think the Silverstone crowd, it's obviously always hard to tell on TV because, they can turn their mics up and down. But I don't think I've ever heard a crowd that loud in a TV broadcast. Like, I couldn't hear the commentators over it.
During some of the best laps of racing I've ever experienced after the safety car restart, when they were like, 3 abreast with Alonso pulling up behind them, right? So what was it? It was Perez, Leclerc, Lewis. When Lewis did that truly beautiful move, the crowd was so loud I couldn't hear the commentators.
Same. What an incredible moment, though. I know, obviously we're skipping a lot of stuff that happened in the middle of the race,
Yeah.
but the after the safety car restart, which was what, 12 laps to go, 11 laps to go, something like that. Yeah. That may have been some of the best racing I've ever watched, period. Yeah. Seeing 4 cars mixing it up like that, going 3 wide. There's a point where it looked like they were going to go 4 wide into a corner. I could not believe it. I mean, obviously, I'm going to keep saying this because I've said it for almost every episode we've done. Shout out to the 2022 cars for actually allowing cars to follow and not just be completely stuck in all the wake. But I wasn't even standing up. I was floating above my floor. I could not. It was so ridiculous just to see.
I cannot tell you my feeling when I realized Sergio Perez when they were getting ready. I was like, oh no, Sergio, because I was convinced, right? Lewis podium.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of the race, I thought he was going to win it, right? And I do wonder. I think without that safety car, he genuinely might have. Perez would not have caught up. He was 20 seconds behind. And it's possible. It was possible. It was at least very likely for second place, possible win. Because look, Lewis was hitting fastest lap after fastest lap. He would hit it, Leclerc would hit it. He would hit it again and again. Mercedes, maybe they're back in the hunt.
Back-ish. I do think Silverstone's probably a better track for
them.
They
said this.
I didn't. Yeah. So a little bit flattering, and also I do think they weren't quite on the pace. Because I know what was going with Carlos. Because I mean, again, Leclerc had a literal chunk of his front wing missing, and was still generally speaking faster than Carlos. It was ultimately Leclerc got really unlucky with that safety car because everyone else was able to come in and pit, and he was stuck with his old hard tires, which. He did a great job of sort of salvaging what he could out of it, but ultimately, at that point, his race was kind of ruined. But
I would say they were on the pace. I mean, even at the end, Lewis was still hitting faster laps than Sergio.
Yeah.
Lewis had the fastest lap today.
Yeah, I guess.
Look, it may be that Silverstone helps them.
Lewis, Mike, I forgot. Lewis had the cheer bonus. That was the extra wind
Look,
that was going in his direction.
I think it all helps. Genuinely, like he had that added level of motivation. It's a track that obviously he knows incredibly well, but 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, you wouldn't have expected this to occur. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
That it was very possible Lewis Hamilton was in for a chance to win this race, a strong chance to win this race.
Yeah.
I think it is showing, because they brought upgrades this week too, they are at least in a position to build stronger from. Like that there might be other races this season where one of the two of them could win it. And I think maybe up until this week, I was the only person who was believing that was a possibility.
It was they are doing well. They're closer. I just don't. I still think Red Bull and Ferrari are still a bit faster. Generally,
I mean,
speaking.
even Lewis, like in the post race, the interview, is like,
yeah,
it's like, look, when I had a Red Bull behind me, I can't. If they're behind you, they're gonna get you. But
yeah,
but a race is more than those laps, right? And I think that was what Lewis was showing today. This was different, right? This was different than what we have seen. In some previous races, they were in a stronger position. It wasn't that like Lewis got third place because everyone else had exploded,
yes.
right? Like, he got it. He earned it. There were lots of fast cars around him in that moment. Like, he got there. Man, it was this was just from from the beginning to the end, right? From lights to flag. Like, this was absolutely stupendous. Like, there are moments in this race that we're not even remembering that we would have spoke about in previous races as some of our favorite moments of the race. Like, this was just amazing. Mick Schumacher got his first points.
Yeah,
and I just gotta say, like, Max, just give it a rest for a minute, will you? Right? Like, it just can't. He cannot help but run everyone. Like, you go off the track. You're off the track. He just can't help himself.
Man, I feel like Max was racing totally fair. I mean, Mick was bold. He was giving it a good effort. Mm-hmm. But what do you think? Max Verstappen's going to just pull off and let you by because he feels bad for you? Like, of course not.
I'm just saying. Just, take a holiday,
Just take a week off. You're ahead enough. You don't need the next race.
He needs a break. He's so angry all the time.
I think he's fine, actually, Mike. I think that's coming from a different place, maybe a little bit more of a nefarious reasoning behind that. Man, just what an absolutely terrific race. I feel like I almost want to go tonight and watch the whole replay of it again. Maybe I'll fast forward the red flag bit. But, man, it was so exciting. There was so much going on. Obviously, it was not a great race for everyone, as we might talk about some back markers and some underperformers. But as a F1 fan, I am so happy to see. And it's just like qualifying is great. We had the rain. We had what a just ridiculous race. I mean, you had the crazy crash. You had the restart. You had the safety car. But also just not only was the grid a little bit mixed up through all the nonsense, but also just there was so much to do, right? Like everyone who was there was like, oh, really pushing for this. Like it wasn't one of those things where, you saw the Red Bulls go 80 seconds up the road and everyone's kind of taking a nap. I mean, it was non-stop action.
Back marker of the race?
Okay, so here's the thing. There were no back markers this race. And as tradition, we're a little broad with our definition of back markers. And so, because there were 14 drivers who finished? I think anyone in the, back part of the race counts. I'm going to say Mick. I'm going to say Mick Schumacher. Is that probably the correct thing to say if someone who finished 8th and got...
Look, we've long established there are no rules to this portion. Because I'm going to go with Zhou Guanyu. I just feel like,
Wait, what? Wait, what?
I'm just going to give it to him. To go through that,
20 feet.
To go through that and walk away, I just got to say, a bit of respect.
That's fair.
There. You picked someone who came 8th.
Yeah, you picked someone who I could have driven a Formula One car as far as.
No, I don't think you could have. I
could have driven it.
I don't think you would start it. I don't think you could get it off the line. I don't think you could do it. I don't think you could do it. No, I don't think you could do it. You think that you wouldn't stall it?
Eventually, I'd get it going. It'd be
I
fun.
don't
I
think you
could make it.
No, because I think you, like me, would wreck the clutch before we got it going.
I'll press the little button. I'll have my little clutch paddle let in, and I'll
think
send
you do
it. Look, Mike, I can
And
do
you'll
it. I feel
send
very
it.
confident. I'll send it. Of
That's
course
the
I'll
way you're
send
gonna
it.
do it. You're gonna send it.
If you don't send it with enough revs, that's how you stall. That's how you get anti-stall.
I don't think you could do it. I don't think you
Mike.
could do it.
Okay.
I don't know
Well,
how we
maybe-
can prove this.
I know how we can prove this. Call your Silverstone buddies. Let us in.
It is actually, you can drive all F1 cars, but I don't,
Oh well, I know. I was sending you a thing on
sent
Instagram
me a
the other
thing,
day.
yeah.
The Formula 4 thing. So there is open seat. Okay, look, we can maybe do some open wheel racing, Mike. I feel like maybe that's what we need to do right now. We'll settle this on the track.
I don't have a driving license. They're not going to let me
You
do
don't
it.
need what?
You don't. You
it's
think
fine.
you don't need a driving license? You think that
Are
if
you
I rocked
driving on
up
a-
and said I don't know how to drive a car, will you let me in one of these?
Yeah, I just think you're confident and just tell them about your F1 2022 experience,
and-
and they'll be like, "Come right on, we'll take your money."
I've seen Broke versus Pro.
Hey, that's a different thing. As
Yeah,
I
it's
just
a
told you
video
about your-
game, and you can't keep it like on the track.
But-
You know what I'm saying?
But Mike, I know how to drive. I've driven cars on real racetracks before. I know how to drive. I know how to do the paddles. I know how to shift. I'm pretty confident. If I got behind the wheel of even like an F4 car.
Do you know how to drive stick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Look, I'm not going to say that I would be good or fast, but I'm pretty confident in my ability to make it around a lap without crashing it. I mean, yeah, when you do like work my neck out, my left leg, yes, I could do it. I could do
Work
it.
my
I'm just
neck out.
saying. Yeah. No, you got it.
No, I know, but I'm saying like it's funny to me that you think that like you would go through that experience and maybe you'd have a sore neck. Do you see how they train their necks? Yeah.
Yes.
Look,
I'm telling you, man. If I knew that I had a chance to get in like an open wheel car,
Mm-hmm.
I'd spend like a month just like just doing the stupid neck exercises, just stepping on my left. I'm just saying, if I ever got the opportunity, I would be 1,000% on it, and I could. I feel like with a little bit of practice, I
just
could
wanna
launch
state
a
for the
Formula 1
record,
car 200 feet.
we are not stating a Formula One car. You are saying you could drive his current F1 2022 car further, is what you're saying. But
If
I'm
you- okay.
assuming you mean with no one around you.
Yeah. Everyone's away. I'm pretty sure I can make it from the start-finish line to the first corner without crashing. I could do that.
I don't think
Tom
you
Cruise
would
can
get
do
it
it, I
off
can do it.
the start line.
It might take me a couple tries, and I might need someone to help me restart the car, but I can do it.
No, but then that's not you doing it. And I genuinely think you would wreck. They would need to change parts on the car before you would get off the line. Nevertheless, no one can tell me what to do. Zhou Guanyu is my back marker of the race.
Okay, all right. Look, that's fine. I just don't appreciate the shade that you're throwing at me because I'm pretty sure I could do it. But
You
it's fine.
started it.
Next time. How about this? If I can ever make it in an open wheel car, 200 meters, then you have to give me the back marker of the race for the next episode. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, sure. You would. It would be my favorite thing of that race if you could do that.
All right, I'm gonna start practicing. I'm gonna go call those people who are doing this thing at Silverstone. I'm gonna get ready, man. I'm gonna start training. I'm gonna
If
hit the,
any
I'm
of
gonna
our
hit the gym.
listeners can make this happen, we'll do whatever it takes now to prove this
Look,
bet.
I'll be completely honest with you. If you look at my bucket list items, number 1, drive a Formula 1 car. Number 2, be in like a fighter jet. Like those are the 2 things I want to do in my bucket list, period. So if I can get close to one of those things, I'd be really happy. I think I could do it though. I feel like I try hard enough and I wouldn't crap my pants. I think I could do it. I believe in myself like Max Verstappen believes that he's the world's greatest driver.
That's a lot. Underperformer of the race?
Oh, Ricciardo,
Yeah, I
man,
agree.
bro.
I don't get it, man. I don't understand. I don't understand anymore. I don't get it. What have we got? Lando came in at 6th.
Yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo 13th, which is penultimate. So he could have been
Bradley
even
Keating.
further down if there weren't 6 people out. Well, he would have been.
I almost don't want to talk about this. Is Ricciardo around next year? Is he really gonna stick around? Like it seems like the rumor
Didn't
is that
McLaren say yes recently?
yes, they did. So the way that I understand it, last year Ricciardo signed a 3-year deal, right? So the option for him to leave is actually on his side, not on McLaren's. Now, I'm sure if he does atrocious, there's probably some clause, but it seems like Danny Rick has the seat for this year, next year, if he wants it. Now, mind you, if he is disheartened or anything like that, obviously he does not need to drive. I'm sure McLaren would be very happy to buy him out of the contract if they could. But this is getting to the point where, like, I don't know what's going on. I can't judge as someone who doesn't know necessarily how to drive a Formula One car.
No, you said you definitely know, and you 100% can do it.
I could do it, but I would say that I'm still not maybe the qualified expert on what's going on. But I don't know what's going on. I just don't. We don't have the old Danny Rick, and it's so sad. But like, it's got to be so disheartening too. Like I can imagine it just being a spiral because every time it's like, why are you so much slower? And it's like, I don't know. It's this, it's that. It's like he's like he doesn't have the confidence, right? Because I
would like to raise a frustration I have with Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Why does he make all these bets about getting podiums? Just get podiums. You know where it's like, oh, you got to get a tattoo if I do it. No. Do your job, right?
Yeah.
It's not about like, oh, this is so unlikely that if I am happen to do it, you should get a tattoo. No.
Yeah.
Just like get the podium, Danny. Like you can do this. You have a car that can perform better than what you're doing right now. Do it. Like I feel because look, I like him as much as the next person. He seems like a super nice guy. I want to see him do well. But when I look at the driver lineup and, you know, I am aware of how much talent exists out there in F2, F3, and how much talent has to move through. Like, I want to start seeing women in these cars, right?
Yeah.
Like
Jamie Chadwick, I feel like deserves a seat on the grid right now.
Yeah. And, well, I think that probably she would need to go through F2, right? Like, I don't know what these W Series cars are like compared to
I don't
F1
think she has
cars.
enough super license points, but just like from a talent perspective. But sure, I agree.
Or at least like she is someone who's out there. Is like she has outperformed her class, right? It's kind of now nobody in W Series is getting the opportunity to perform better because Jamie Chadwick just keeps winning all the time. So it's like I look at some of the people on this list. I say the same thing with Latifi, right? Who, you know, bless his little heart. Oh, I just realized he didn't even finish in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't paid attention to this until I just looked at it now.
He did outperform Ricciardo, though. Now, I will say one thing. Someone in the chat, I think Adam is saying that apparently Danny Rick's DRS was broken for most of the race. Fair enough. I will
All
say
right, that's
that actually,
today then.
Yeah, that is a major disadvantage when you're sort of in those DRS trains. If you don't have DRS, you could get detached really quickly. But yeah, you're right. Like that's a problem with today. But you could discount today, and there's still so many times. Like we just like if he had think about the conversation we'd be having about Danny Rick if he did not win Monza last year, right? I mean, the fact that he had that terrific race, he's had little flashes of like being decent, but like either Lando Norris is the world's greatest racing car driver by a long shot, or Danny Rick doesn't have the confidence to get what he needs out of the car. And I think while I rate Lando highly, and I actually do think, because it's always one of those things where it's like, you know, it was even like when Michael Schumacher, like when he first got into F1, Martin Brundle was his teammate. And Brundle got dropped because it seemed like Brundle sucked. It actually turned out that no, Michael Schumacher was just amazing. But when you don't have the context, when you don't really know, you know, both sides of it, I think Lando is doing a really, really good job. But also, regardless, I do think Danny Rick is underperforming.
I mean, that's this time. I did just want to note, because I forgot about it, much better showing for Aston Martin.
Well, not in qualifying.
Then qualifying is what I mean, right?
Yeah.
9th and 11th, which is a shame that they couldn't get 2 in the points.
Yeah.
But, you know, Seb got 9th on his birthday.
Happy birthday. Shout out, Seb.
I couldn't believe he was 35.
Yeah.
I feel like this might just be this, like, I have this thing about age and experience, that kind of stuff in my brain, but, like, I just naturally assume Seb is much older than me because of who he is and what he does, but no.
Dude, I'm right there with you. So my 30th birthday is coming up soon, and I'm looking around at how many of the drivers are like,
Austin, you shouldn't. No, that upsets me because I've forgotten you weren't 30 yet.
We invited to my birthday party if you want to come out.
All right, well.
We're going to go drive F4 cars on the track. It's going to be very
wished.
fun.
You wished.
I wish, yeah. It would be really fun. Man. But yeah, dude, just what an absolute action-packed race. It's rare for me to want to go and rewatch a race. I mean, I like watching like historical races sometimes, just kind of to see some of the highlights and stuff. But I legitimately want to go and rewatch that race. It was so good. And it was so good for so good reasons, right? It wasn't like I feel like a lot of times I don't really want to rewatch a race because like, oh, you can just see the highlight of like, I've seen, Lewis and Max coming together at Cops like a million times, right? Like I've seen the highlight, but this race was just so entertaining. I guess, can I ask, was there a favorite part of the race you had?
I mean, it's like the last 10 laps, like
the final restart.
Yeah. Like from that moment, but like not even just from the restart. It was like a couple of laps into the restart when it all started just going bananas. And then again, like maybe not the last 2 laps, you know what I mean? So it's like just this like little window of that fight for second and third. Like that was what I liked.
When literally the 4 cars were all dicing it up through. Yeah, I think it was the second or third lap. I think once DRS was enabled, I'd have to rewatch it. But that moment when they were all going back and forth, and Lewis was all ahead, and then Checo came through,
and then Alonso comes in, and I'm like, no, Fernando, go away. It's like you are not needed right now. There's already enough going on.
It was wild. But I think not only my favorite race of the year so far. Last year had some terrific races, but last year did not have they were good races for the front two to run away. Yeah. Last year did not have the kind of excellent sustained racing from so much of the field. Like it was just nonstop action. Only thing that puts a little black mark here is just making sure that Alex Albon is okay, which again, we very much hope that he's totally okay, and they're just, precautionary checks. But, it's one of those things where you can see this ridiculous crash where you see a flip and getting wedged and everything. And Zhou seems to be fine. I think he's already been released and said, hey, you're good to go. Yep. But, you might just get nosed into the wall. But it's one thing to see it on TV. It's another thing to experience the G-force and experience the kind of the violence of an accident like that. So hopefully our buddy Alex is all good because, that was, in hindsight, especially when you look back at what his car looks like, that was a hell of a shunt.
Yeah. Just before we finish up, I want to just review the standings because it's all changed now.
Yeah, all changed.
The drivers' standings: Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez. Goodbye, Ferrari. Nice to know ya. Enjoy the rest of the season. I'm worried about them now.
You should be. I mean, to be fair, it could have been worse. Max being 7th or 8th or whatever, or 7th. Did drop a lot of points here. Mind you, he's still well in the lead.
181 to Sergio's 147. But he's not...
Exactly.
Like, this is again, right? Like, 1 DNF, Sergio wins a race, and now we're like...
Right up there.
Yeah. It's like now we're trading backwards and forwards. Now there's no team orders, right? Now we're like, let's let whoever wins. If it's not going to be... I would love to see Sergio win the championship, honestly, because I just think that'd be great. So then Carlos Sainz 138 and Charles Leclerc 138, Carlos Sainz 127. So they're really close again, right? And so now there can't be team orders at Ferrari. George Russell. I mean, yes, there's always a favored, right? There's always a favored. And Charles is a better driver than Carlos, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because something I noted today. This was Carlos Sainz 150th race and Charles' 70th race. And there's just something about that where it's like the difference between them, it seems, on the track compared to experience is kind of struck me a bit. George at 111, so he's still doing great. I mean, this is the benefit of just the 1 DNF for him, right? That he's completely missed a race, but it is not massively affected him. He's 16 points behind Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
Considering Carlos just won a Grand Prix, right? So that's that consistency angle. Lewis at 93 now to Lando. Then I think it's when you're looking at where they are, then a big drop down to Lando at 58. So that top 6 is now, I think there's a lot to play for when you go from at least 2 to 6, 2 to 5. It's not a huge gap in it, really.
No, not at all. And you've seen crazy races like this happen. All it takes is some unreliability, some unluckiness. It's not outside the realm of possibility. that something crazy could happen. That being said, I think Max is still a very, very heavy favorite for this championship.
He is.
We're getting to the point where I would say most of the cars are getting fairly settled on their upgrades, just considering cost cap and stuff. I'm sure teams will continue to tweak and to tune and whatnot, but I don't expect massive changes. I feel like the pecking order as far as the performance is probably mostly set at this point. So I'd be very surprised if, Ferrari pulls out another, 0.3 of a second out of the hat, or Red Bull can't respond or anything like that. So I think Red Bull are in incredibly strong shape. I think Max personally is in incredibly strong shape. But as we've seen, it does not take much for the tables to turn very quickly. The question is just, Checo is not going to challenge Max, right?
I don't know.
I don't.
I don't think so either. But I.
Could Checo challenge? Like, would Red Bull let him do that? I don't know. I'm purely speculating now. But like,
it depends.
Would they really want Checo to win? I'm just saying.
So look,
Max is the
I think there's 2 points.
son.
There's 2 points. Red Bull always just want to win, right? I think ultimately, so they'll just, they just want to win, because you end up in that situation like we saw with the Ferraris today. Like, if you're not making decisions, you end up losing ground, right? So if Checo keeps being on him, and they keep holding him back, I don't know. I think the more interesting thing right now, though, because I agree with you, the likelihood of that occurring is slim. Well, I think maybe the more interesting thing right now is Red Bull 328, Ferrari 265, Mercedes 204. Less than 60 points now between Ferrari and Mercedes. We'll see.
Still a lot of points, but yeah, Mercedes.
It's a lot of points, but we're only halfway.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I will say I am loving this season. I am
Such a
loving
great season,
this race.
man. Like
Formula One.
Look, last
it's
season
hitting...
was so good, right? Like, clearly, everyone was saying it, maybe the best season of all time. I don't think we're at the level of last season yet, personally, but I'm loving it for a whole different set of reasons. Because last season was so great because Max and Lewis.
Absolutely.
That made last season so incredible, right? And we don't have that this year. We don't have that between anyone. Like, Leclerc and Max are not on it every single race. It looked like it might be that way, but as we said many times before, like, if Max is unhindered, he will win. And like, that wasn't the case last year, right? Like, it wasn't the case of like, if Lewis is unhindered, he will win. Like, because Max was, they would just beat each other.
They were even
with them.
They were very even.
They were very even, especially towards the second half of the season. They were very even, because I think Max caught up a lot on Lewis. Like, Mercedes started incredibly strong, and Max ended up catching up and surpassing. Kind of.
I feel like there's pain in that word you just dropped there. Surpassing.
It's just, we know now it's not as clear as it. It's just not that clear. So it's why I said, like, I say this. People might not believe me when I say this. There would be some justice for Max winning for him, which I can appreciate. Like, if he wins this, if he wins the championship this year, it's like, boom, I did it. Yeah. Anyway, next race, Austrian Grand Prix. Red Bull Ring.
Let's
sprint
go.
weekend. It's a sprint weekend next weekend. Did you know that, Austin Evans? It's a sprint weekend.
I forgot. Yep. No, I did not.
So qualifying Friday, sprint weekend Saturday to set the grid order, but not the pole position, because that makes sense. The grid order for the race on Sunday.
Very spicy. I look forward to it. I know it might not be the most exciting track on the calendar. I like the Red Bull Ring, though. I feel like I like the way it looks. I like the verticality of it.
Fast track?
Yeah, it's a fast track. It's not a super long track, but it's a fast, quick track. So looking forward to it.
I will say, like, just on good tracks, having been played a lot of F1 22, like, I was excited for today because Silverstone is a fantastic racetrack. And like, you feel that when you're driving it in the game, right? Like, this is a fun, fast racetrack that's laid out very nicely. I like it a lot. Just as a quick follow-up to that, I still cannot get a car around Monaco in that game. I can't do it.
It's tough, man.
I can't do it.
It's tough.
And it's gotten harder. It is harder. Baku, incredibly hard too. Like that corner that I mentioned, like the where you go up to the
Leclerc
you
corner.
almost have to handbrake turn to get around that. It's incredibly difficult to get. Yeah, and I cannot. I DNF'd both Monaco and Baku, which is one after the other, but I still won the championship with 2 races left in the calendar.
Well, I'm very proud of you, Mike.
Me and
I
George
look
did
forward
it.
to our I look forward to our head-to-head in single seaters. That's all I'm saying, right? I'm not challenging you, except that I'm challenging you right now. And,
What will happen is the
be there, be
winner will
square.
be whoever's car just happens to accidentally nudge forward, because neither of us will be able to start one of these vehicles under our own power.
Mike, I am disappointed in your lack of confidence in my abilities, and I look forward to proving you wrong.
If you would like to catch video versions of this show, go to backmarkers.live. If you want to catch the audio podcast version, go to backmarkers.fm. We are at Backmarkers Live on Twitter, so you can come and tweet at us if you would like to. You can share your thoughts, share your opinions. We'd love to have them. We could talk about them on future episodes. We usually do a bit of hangout afterwards, after our live streams, so you can come and hang out with us live, but you can also catch that extra hangout time on our YouTube channel at backmarkers.live is the easiest way to get to that, because I don't know how easy it is if you search the backmarkers on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe you'll find us.
There are a
maybe
lot of
you won't.
backmarkers on YouTube.
Yeah, so just go to backmarkers.live, and it's the easiest way to get to us. We'll be back next week. It's next week, yes. We're going to be on Sunday. We'll talk about the sprint, as well as the full race itself. At this point, who knows what we're going to see. Thanks for hanging out with us, everyone, and we'll be back next time. Say goodbye, Austin Evans.
Goodbye until we meet on the mean streets of Silverstone and real cars to determine who gets the optimal team orders and who has to do intros and outros.
Nobody finishes a show quite like Austin Evans in that under his own steam, he won't finish. So cannot start a car, cannot finish a show.
Fair.
All right. Stop recording.
It's not.
I love watching you try
great.
and weave this complicated.
You know, I come up with it literally off the top, but not in a good way.
No, I can
start talking.
No
and then I
one
stop
is
at some
expecting that that's not what's happening,
point. What? People don't think I'm reading off my script right now. What? Oops.
We
I
do
forgot
script
to-
this entire thing.
It's very difficult, but I'm proud of.
Oh, look at that.
scripting.
Dan Designs UI in the chat says, I work on F122. Any feedback is appreciated. Dan Designs, I will
Ooh.
say, absolutely loving the game. Looks fantastic. Plays wonderfully on my Steam Deck. I don't know how you're doing it, but it is completely locked at 60 frames per second the entire time,
is it?
which I love. It's
Nice.
really a joy to play on Steam Deck. There was something that I wished the game did. Let me think about it. I don't know.
Well, in the meantime, I will say thank you very much, Axel. I will say that this felt like a great show. I think, to me, when we're recording, so much of the energy of the show is based on the race.
Yes.
And if it's a boring race, it's hard to be excited for
Well,
an
I
hour.
mean,
Sometimes
I thought I struggled today because I was exhausted coming into this recording, but
were you?
Oh, yeah, just because I was just burned so much adrenaline during the race
Oh,
itself.
yeah.
Right? Especially because I thought Lewis was going to win. I'll tell you right now, I don't care what anyone says about me. I knew I could feel it. If Lewis won that race, I would have cried.
Yeah.
There was no way around it for me. I would have been. I would have been in tears.
He could have done it, man. He could have done it. I know. You're the last person on earth I need to tell you that, but he did a great job. And
I wonder how
almost-
different it could have been if George was in the race too today.
Yeah, George would have been. Honestly, I think George would have probably been ahead. George has really had the measure of Lewis this year. I think he would have at least done as well.
As well, I don't know about ahead. Lewis was on one today. Lewis was on one, and he started ahead. George was all the way back in 8th. George had to do a bunch of work to even get to close to Lewis, right? I think basically it would have been helpful for the undercut and all that kind of stuff, right? They could have done a bit more team strategy play. George could have held people back, right? All that kind of stuff, right? They could have. I don't know if Sergio would have gotten to where Sergio got to if George was in the race today, because Sergio was in that position, right? And George is very daring too, right? And so, like, I could imagine he would have done a good job of holding Sergio back potentially. But yeah, I think the outcome would have been different. I don't know in which way. I still think that Lewis would have. I think Lewis would have gotten the edge today. I just think everything was playing to him, to me, it was purely that like his pace today was obscene, and like the Mercedes was saying, right? It was hammer time, and I haven't heard that anyone say that in a long time, you know. And like he, that's gonna out of my head now. What I was gonna say, but like it was just he was just hitting sectors constantly throughout the race. Like he really had it going.
And I mean, he had some advantage in the Ferrari. Like for Charles and Carlos were fighting so much and letting each other through, and it was just like it was a messy race. I think on the Ferrari pit wall. I mean, obviously they got the win, but I don't think.
Did you see after the race? They're like F1 caught it, right? Like Bonotto grabbed Charles like afterwards, and he's like shaking his hand at him. And their expectation, the commentators are like, do not talk badly about us in public. Do not talk badly about team strategy, right? Like when you like, and kind of saying like, as you're now going to the press, you keep that for later on. That is between us. You say, and like, because he was like really like giving it to him, of like you know that is for us, not for everyone. Did you catch that thing that Lewis said? He said a very small thing, like he was just like, and he's like, we all need to be sharper. Is what he said. And like I liked that as a thing because it was like he had a slow pit stop, right? Could have been improved, like again, but like he's saying about himself, right? Like he couldn't. Like I just like that as a thing. It's like if you're gonna say anything, say something like that. But you know, as Lewis always does, and team was great, blah 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 blah. But like I liked that. Adam said in the chat, Charles said in the post race that he was being offered words of encouragement, which was amusing. And look, Charles, I do think
you did such a good job.
There is a possibility that he was saying to him that, like, look, this wasn't your race today, but you've got it on other races. But I guarantee he was also saying, keep your mouth shut, son. Right? Like, it is not for you.
Boy, Mike, would you like some words of encouragement? Because I'd love to tell you how great you are at your job.
The thing was, it looked very passionate. Yeah. I reckon he was saying to him, like, you keep your mouth shut, boy. But I think because so many people clearly were asking him about it, he was saying, oh, no, he was trying to cheer me up.
Of course. I mean, he just got said, I'm sure he was just told, don't talk bad about the team. That probably also extends to, I don't know, the team boss who yelled at you in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
Good job. That's hilarious. I did not see that.
All right, I got to run.
Okay,
this
perfect.
awesome.
Sounds good. Hey, thank you, everyone, for hanging out and catching up. And we will see you next week for look, we all got to just get our expectations down a little bit. There's no way next week is going to be as good. No. Right?
That's like a once-in-a-season type of race, that one. Like, seriously. We're going to have good races, no doubt. But like that was, today was next level.
Next level. So until Max and Checo run away.
Give it another go.
Look, it's called Red Bull Ring. It means they get extra horsepower. I think those are the rules. I don't make them up. So
we'll see.
So, all right. Catch y'all later.